Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on AI, social media and digital currency. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. David Schumacher, Mr. Eric, Madam Lisa and Professor David Smith. First I would like to give chance Mr. David Schumacher.
Yes, hello everyone. Great set of topics today. AI, social media, and digital currency. And of course, that's a very broad range of topics to talk about. So I thought how to go about doing that. And then I was in an online discussion yesterday where we were talking about something similar. And I realized that really what I needed to talk about this morning perhaps was the intersection of these three technologies and what that means. Each one of them is coming into their own. Social media has been here for a bit. AI has been around in one form or another for a while, and so has digital currency. But when the three of these converge, there is much to be gained out of this, and there's some people that are taking different approaches to how to go about this. I think that what Mark Zuckerberg has going on at Meta, Facebook, is the convergence of these. There's a lot of talk about metaverse and so forth, and rightly so. But what fuels that metaverse? Digital currency in the background, the social aspects coming together, and the algorithms that produce the experience and tie everything together. In the news recently is Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. And I saw a newspaper, I saw a news article that I thought described it in the picture, but I think the reporter that saw the picture and wrote the story missed the point. What it was Elon Musk carrying a kitchen sink into the Twitter headquarters building, and they didn't get it. They went off about different things about what that could mean. But Elon Musk has talked about what he would do at Twitter casually on a couple of occasions as building essentially the app of everything. One where you have a social media component, where you have a digital payment component. Perhaps, maybe, who knows what Twitter will eventually end up looking like. Perhaps Twitter and Facebook will continue to be competitors in ways that we haven't thought of, because I think they both have visionaries that are at their head that are oftentimes misunderstood. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times I agree with and disagree with the both of them, but their bank accounts are bigger than mine, so perhaps they've got something figured out that I haven't. But I see that as a real possibility. And I think the timing is right. On this show before, I've talked about the country of Estonia and the fact that they have government online. A former Soviet satellite country was able to take and get high adoption rates and high usage rates, putting everything into a digital environment where previously all they had was analog phones and boat anchors for computers. So if they can do that, imagine what the innovation of the people at Meta, the people that Elon Musk has around him to transform Twitter can do with this convergence of technologies. And guess what? There's already a model of sorts out there if you look to China. Sometimes we in the West don't look under the hood to see what's going on in China. But if you take a look at WeChat and WeChat Pay and some of their other competitors in China, they're trying to roll into this already. WeChat is heavily used social media in China. WeChat Pay is heavily used financial transactions. It has a couple of competitors, and with their main competitor in themselves, they handle over 91% of all the digital transactions that go on in China, and that's a big country. So I raised China and Estonia as options to say that there is credible evidence, I think, to show that people will adopt and take this on, that they like what they see when they can do this. And we invoke 21st century technologies to this, which I see will be going on between Musk and Zuckerberg. And I think we can have a really interesting conversation a year or two down the road to see how this is going. That maybe the detractors at Meta may not have fully understood the message. That's happened many times at evolving new technologies. So with there, I'll pass the baton and see what others have to say and how they want to tackle this range of topics.
Mr. Eric. Mr. Eric, I'm sorry. In that situation, I want to give chance, Madam Lisa.
Okay, I think you hit the wrong button. I think it's a very interesting set of topics, and I think for me, it's more watching it and reflecting on it, and then tapping into it. So I'm seeing a lot of cases of automation, some with intelligence that are emerging in different ways. Some of that is resilience testing against software. Some of it is tools for creators, and it's super fun to see it emerge. And I think we're going to be ready to, deal with the different species that emerge from that intelligence, and they're going to help us a lot. I think the future is going to continue beyond social media much more than is imagined, especially around decentralization. I think that's going to be the way of the future, in part because it's just too hard for, a group of individuals to manage incredibly large pools of resources and code. It's a lot more productive in many ways to put it to the wild, to the people who can take it and work on it and create from it and, serve as peer-to-peer support for getting that out to the world and to the communities and so forth. So I'm really excited that Elon Musk and his new team is there at Twitter. And already in the first few days, we've seen the acknowledgement of communities and, groups of people that want to hang out together, being acknowledged and giving opportunities. And we're hearing about gamification of some of the tweets that might be coming within those communities. And then, potentially even more gamification, of course, if some of that is opened up so that we can see the data and play on top of it. So I'm really excited about what I'm seeing in the first few days. And if he does move more to decentralize Twitter and give it to the people, I'll definitely be cheering him on for that. They already do have crypto tipping included in Twitter per person, like per profile. So if they can bring that into the gamification of each post, which I imagine is going to happen, hey extra, then I think that's really going to be exciting. And it sort of looks like, just from what they're saying, the first few days, they might be going in that direction. So the fun that those of us who have been early in blockchain games have experienced, roller coasters and all, hopefully will have a chance to be experienced by the nearly 8 billion people, if you haven't checked your population clock lately. But yeah, I think it's a good way to spread resources, allow millions and millions and millions of groups to administer their own resources for their communities, people to have the freedom to flow around where they want to be and hang out and what they want to do in the world. And that collection of systems, along with our good AI friends who will probably be listening to this in retrospect, I think is going to be able to make a better world for the 8 billion.
Professor David Smith.
Sharif, thank you today. I agree with what I said, but Lisa, we're taking bets here in Austin on where the Twitter headquarter building is going to be located.
I can't wait to visit. Just let me know, would you? Because right now it's 4 hours away from me. I've already looked it up. I'm on standby.
Well, the topic's a great one as you see it and how the pieces interplay with each other and what can be done. But what I think is very interesting is that we look at social media and digital currency, and that's one great topic in itself. Then we put AI and look at AI in either social media or in digital currency. That's a great topic by itself. But as David said earlier, I think the intersection of them is going to be very interesting. Um, as you look at AI, I really have to divide AI into multiple segments, and each of them have their own play as we look at this topic. You're going to see AI type chat box used all the time in this domain and become a primary way of interaction. If you begin to see where Elon Musk is going with Twitter, you're seeing that because not only did he let a bunch of executives going, he's also announced all of his intentions to go and totally modify their fact checking system. And his approach looks like he's using more and more AI to begin to do that and have a published set of rules that make sense to people instead of individual opinions to go there. Now, digital currency is an interesting look because digital currency is going to play whether it is a cryptocurrency or if it is really more of a fiat currency. They're both digital currencies and look there. And the ability to conduct commerce is going to be very changed. So you look at what is being early released, for example, Lisa and Twitter, is that it's clear he's going to a monetary approach, particularly for companies that will be different before, and it will be tied to their compliance to open innovation and with that. So a lot of elements there, but to me, the combination of these is going to be with us for a long time. Social media and all different types have become much more important and will continue to go to. The market size projections on it are all over everything right now because we see that continuing to go. And one of the big places as we look at the combination of the three of these is how does it manage risk? How does we get compliance going across these? How do we harmonize the different regulatory approaches for these in the different countries around the world? Because there's very different approaches there. And so those are some of the challenges coming up. But since we've got a great panel, Steve, I think I'll stop here and come back and listen to some others for a while.
Thank you. Mr. Brad.
Hey, good morning, everybody, for whoever it's still morning for. The first thing I'd like to say is, can we stop glorifying these flipping billionaires? They're not. Stop it. Let's just stop. They are not innovators. They were once. Jeff Bezos was an innovator in 2000. Elon Musk was an innovator. They weren't really innovators. They were really good business dudes who had a lot of access to a lot of network and a lot of money. They are not helping the economy right now. They're fighting for DoD contracts. You think they went to the stars to see them better? No, come on. Elon Musk is pumping out conspiracy theories, deleting posts about Pelosi, things like that. He has bought a media platform, and he did it accidentally because he was about to get in trouble with the SEC for doing insider information. That's all I'm going to say about Elon. Do not glorify this man. Do not glorify any of them. Glorify the people who are going up, stepping up, helping, who are developing economies, because that is what this stuff is going to do. He bought a platform and he's ripping out restrictions that were put there for people to have more civil discourse. He's firing everybody. Yeah, he's doing the same thing. Oh, okay. Funny guy. But it's dangerous. It's really, 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 really dangerous. We've seen that with this edition on the Capitol. We've seen that with right-wing supremacists coming up all over the world. There's a whole lot of controversy. What digital economies can do is actually take the unbanked and take the 2 billion people who currently cannot participate in world economies and give them that option. Now, that is a tool. That is not good or bad, because you will have giant companies like Nestle who go in and starve African populations, paying people in their own currency and basically building tent cities like we've always had, especially industrial revolutions. Remember the railroads, how they were built, tent cities, Chinese immigrants, a lot of death, very poor working conditions. When industrialists and billionaires and people who strip away regulations get their way, people suffer. That's how they're billionaires. Inflation in this economy is not caused by interest rates. It is caused by a lack of circulative economy. That is because all of these hedge funds, all of these billionaires have done the opposite of what a lot of people throughout history say is good for the economy, taken it out. And because we have no currency, things still float in prices, but we don't have enough money to buy them. Hence, we get inflation with no minimum wage raising, things like that. People suffer. We need to figure out how to use this stuff to actually add value instead of taking value out of the economy. Now we see a lot of marketing glorifying these people who are leading the world and globalists and things like that. Well, we're into Web3. We're starting to be able to own our own data again. That's really important. And that's going to be extremely important when it comes to digital currencies. The reason Estonia is going so fast and can leapfrog countries like the US in digital currencies, not because we can't, is because it's really, really, really dangerous for us to. We have the number one dollar, and if we mess with it, we might not anymore. Look at Venezuela. Look at Syria. Look at Russia. Look at 1920s Germany. Hyperinflation is no joke. And if you do not control your currency, and you do not have the proper assets to back it up, and you do not have proper circulation of it, you get all these huge, huge problems where those who then do have money can come in and take advantage. All I'm saying is let's stop glorifying these guys and try to figure out actual problems, because right now they're fighting for military contracts. We need to fight for ourselves. We need to fight for water. We need to fight for food. We need to fight against the blight that's coming. Digital currencies can do this, but we have to put value in the economy. When it comes down to it, the value in any digital currency economy is going to come to electricity. It's going to come to power. Right now, in the real world, it's food. We need food, shelter, medical therapy. In the digital world, it's going to be about power and information. Those are the commonalities we're dealing with. When these become digital currencies, that's when we're going to see a lot of power shift. Sorry, I've ranted. My time's up for now.
Thank you. Professor Rob.
Me, huh? Oh, I looked like I moved in the hierarchy there. I missed it. So we kind of drifted over into talking about Elon Musk. I don't disagree. A lot of the folks that acquire lots of money aren't exactly the best ethical models for us to follow. And I hate to say this, but Musk was never an innovator. He was not the first founder of Tesla. He has been very good at being able to market up his products and companies and get visibility, but most of them are just marginally in the black, with Tesla being the exception. But certainly remember Solar City and how Tesla had to buy it to keep it from collapsing financially, and that was not a good deal for Tesla to begin with, or the Tesla investors. But that's kind of a side mark. With regard to the X app, it is unlikely he's going to succeed with this. The reason is, if you look at the process he's taking to acquire Twitter, granted, it's a best practice. The two best practices he had was to eliminate the executive staff that disagreed with him, because you can't have internal conflict, and the other was take the company private so that the resulting fall in Tesla value wouldn't result in his being forced out. So with it being private, and the board, of course, becomes a non-entity with a private company, and then the executive staff is gone, he has full control and the ability to execute. But now he's laying off around 75% of the staff. And remember that that staff, the remaining 25%, not only has to run Twitter, and it does require people to run it, everything from selling ads to operating the very large social media platform. But he's got to program this X app. I mean, so you've got which is not going to be trivial. It's trying to do what he's doing. I mean, it's from what he's talking about, it's probably going to make Microsoft Office look like a walk in the park, and getting people to migrate to it's not going to be easy either, particularly with a lot of the drama going around with regard to moderation. And we've already seen a number of advertisers now abandon the Twitter platform. Car companies were obvious; they were the biggest and most vocal when they left, though that might have happened just because he owns Tesla and they don't want to fund his underlying efforts. But it does lower the capability of the company to cover their debt service. They just took on $13 billion worth of debt when interest rates are incredibly high, and that debt service is going to chew into their operating capital pretty heavily. And the debt service just bought out the stockholders. I mean, it didn't really provide an excess of operating capital. So where the money is going to come through to develop the app is going to be an interesting dance to see him make, because he's going to have to get higher investment, and that higher investment is going to have to come in underneath the cloud of Twitter starting to slide and fail. Because we're going to go through this period where the advertisers abandon, they're going to see whether or not it turns into a hellscape. Musk's words, not mine. And whether or not they're going to want their brands associated with whatever the heck's going on with Twitter. But anti-Semitism, racist remarks, bullying, these were all things that were existing on the platform before moderation came in. These are things that when you allow everybody to do kind of what they want, and the service becomes Parler, they're going to have a real issue, much like Parler has had with regard to getting advertisers, because people don't want their brands connected to bad behavior. It causes brand erosion, and you've got issues. We just saw Nike and a bunch of other people abandon Ye for speaking out against Jewish people. So it's going to be an interesting dance. But you cut your resources massively. At the same time, you're going to need massive resources to build an app. That math doesn't work for me. Where do those resources come from? Now, it looks like initially they're going to come from Tesla. But okay, then what are the Tesla guys going to do? They still have to compete in the automotive market. They're still going to have to roll up against a major push by pretty much every international car company in 24, 25 as they roll out their own electric car lines. And in many cases, the technology they're showcasing is more advanced than Tesla's. General Motors, as an example, it currently has a better self-driving technology than Tesla does. It outranks it in every test. Tesla's is more visible because it's running into things, but that's largely because they've been promoting it as autopilot rather than as a level 2+ system, which is what it is. So I think we don't have to. I mean, we'll see that if what I expect to happen here does, we're going to see a cascading failure of Tesla's companies, because Musk's companies. Largely because what Musk does as a company fails, as we saw with Solar City, is he tries to get the other companies to prop it up, and they're all pretty much running on the ragged edge. They don't have a lot of excess capital, and so if he has to make that pivot, first using Tesla resources to hold up Twitter, and then using SpaceX resources to hold up Tesla, or whatever else, you're going to see a cascade, and that's going to be a problem for his ecosystem. Now, having said that, I don't think it's going to be a great outcome, because some of the businesses are doing good work. SpaceX in particular is for a low-cost, heavy-lift launch. Nobody can touch them, and if that were to collapse, Blue Origin's not going to be able to step in. Virgin Galactic's not going to be able to step in. The companies that were likely to benefit just aren't in a position to pick up that kind of load, and certainly the traditional aerospace companies aren't in a great position to pick this up, because they're carrying way too much cost. So we'll see. It's good. This is going to be, I think, quite a bit more disruptive than we anticipate. Everything from exploring new legal remedies by people that are bullied online, now holding Musk and Tesla personally accountable, which I believe is going to come out of this. And of course, this all falls out of the near collapse or the visible collapse of Facebook, putting a cloud over social media altogether. The Facebook collapse is tied to a premature pivot to Meta to avoid the company being broken up. Probably a good lesson here. You really don't restructure the company to overcome a government intervention, it doesn't work that way, at least not the way that he did it. Looking back at the days of IBM and Microsoft, who faced similar challenges, the right way to do it is just stop the behavior the governments are objecting to. Renaming is not going to solve your problems, though we saw both Facebook and Google go down that renaming phase. The Google process was more interesting because what they did is they held Google itself up as the sacrificial lamb. So if they go after Google, they don't collapse the entire company. But the rest of Google's businesses aren't doing that great. So if they lose Google net ad revenue, they're not in any better shape. So back to topic. We're talking about AI. We're talking about cryptocurrency and that realm of technology, and perhaps a bit of the blend of the underlying efforts. Here's where we really need, I think, this next generation of artificial intelligence that's coming that IBM has talked about. The idea of a real digital assistant that could help keep you from doing stupid things, where you could create the first human clone of yourself to do the tasks that you don't enjoy doing, and then long term have that digital assistant be able to help you make decisions so you're thinking strategically and not tactically. Musk's decision to buy Twitter was a tactical decision to address a concern he had with moderation. I'm pretty sure somebody just said, hey, you're the richest guy in the world, why don't you just buy him and fix it? And he decided to go off and do it without thinking through the implications to the rest of his companies. And clearly he thought better of it after it was done. But then facing a court hearing on a hostile takeover where he was complaining disclosure was inefficient, which he was going to lose, that he was forced to go through with the deal, which has created this nightmare of an economic situation. And had he had somebody that wasn't just telling him he could do whatever he wanted, but stopped him and got him to think through the implications for his other companies, there's no doubt in my mind he wouldn't have bought Twitter. In fact, as I say, the decision to actually go through with the deal was because he was going to lose in court. Put it this way: if you go to somebody, you force them to sell you something they don't want to sell, your defense that they did improper disclosure is not going to hold any air whatsoever, because you were forcing. You didn't care about what the hell it was underneath the covers when you tried to force them to sell. You can't then later argue that you suddenly do care. The court's not going to go with that. And you know it. So in the end, that's going to be a mess. AI could be the technology that we can use to help fix a lot of problems like this, where politicians and CEOs and individual people are making just poorly thought through decisions at the spur of the moment that really should require days, if not weeks or months of research before making them. The AI can do that research at machine time and provide you with better advice on how you should proceed. At the very least, if he'd wanted to buy Twitter, the AI could have outlined a process where he didn't cripple the property before acquiring it. That's the big problem here. His commentary on Twitter did so much financial and economic damage, let's say more economic damage to Twitter before he acquired it. There was no way in hell he could leave the company public as he went through. And who buys an asset and destroys the value of that asset prior to taking ownership? That's just brain dead stupid. So having a process that preserved the asset until he could take control and modify it so his improvements were accretive as opposed to destructive would have made a hell of a difference, even if he wanted to go through with this. And as I say, I think the AI would have talked him out of it. So the next generation of AI should help us, assuming it finally makes it through the birthing process, should help avoid decisions like this and certainly avoid some of the major investments in cryptocurrency that people are wondering where their college funds and retirement funds went of late. Just a reminder that this market gets really excited. People get really excited about technology before it's ready. And then they're surprised that when it finally arrives, how fast it came. And so the initial investors tend to lose their shirts. And the folks that enter later on when the technology is more mature are the ones that actually make the sustained benefits. You can have hills and valleys, but the best time to invest in a technology is when it's stabilized and the future is known and better assured. At these early phases, it's always a very high risk because people get excited. They overinvest. They get each other stirred up in kind of a feeding frenzy. And when that feeding frenzy settles, you have a dot-com moment, as we did at the end of the 80s. And that was a market correction. With cryptocurrency, it was just a segment correction, but it was the same underlying problem. People got overexcited, overinvested. The baseline economics weren't there. The market corrected and they lost their shirts. You have to be aware that that's a recurring cycle. And unless you're incredibly knowledgeable, that's just not a horse you're going to ride. And otherwise, you're just going to lose a ton of money. But once it stabilizes, then the investment makes more sense. Then you can enter, and you don't have to be an expert, and you can ride the waves. But investing in something that is this new and is this unknown, and where the people investing in it really have no knowledge on how it works, that's almost always going to end badly, whether we're talking about .coms or cryptocurrency or the next big collapse. So just be more methodical and don't get excited just because everybody else is excited forward. And the hope is, again, the next advantage, the true AI digital assistant may be able to help us avoid some of these problems going forward, assuming we have access to them.
Thank you, Professor Rob, for your excellent analysis. Now I request Mr. Extra. It's your name or company name?
That's my name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Eric invited me.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Sir, what you want to share for today's session?
Well, it's a little late. I see in the chat the conversations about AI, social media, and digital currency, which is pretty broad.
And Elon.
Obviously, I would agree with what Brian said in terms of, champion, Elon Musk and, billionaires and so forth. I don't think that's really the same. I don't think there's a benefit necessarily to that from a societal standpoint, as he was saying. So I would definitely agree with some of the points, some of the criticisms he was making along those sort of lines, and how much benefit there is to those kind of efforts and so forth, right? Like Brian was mentioning. In terms of like the topic, supposedly, as it says in the chat, of AI, social media, and digital currency. I think that social media and digital currency, just take those two topics together, are very closely aligned, right? I think that the only way digital currencies find success is through adoption, right? And certainly using social media is one way to find that adoption. There are some differences if you want to take a Venn diagram of those two topics, because digital currency doesn't exist without usage, obviously, and like I said, social media is one way to get there. It also doesn't necessarily exist in any kind of meaningful way without merchant adoption, and that's a much different mode of adoption, if you will, than through social media. Right, because merchants don't use digital currencies. Morgan Stanley has done reports on this and so forth, and merchant adoption for digital currencies just doesn't really exist in any kind of scale. And so, without that adoption of commerce, it's inherently going to be limited. Right, and we've seen it with the splash of digital currency and cryptocurrency debit cards as a marketing arm of exchanges and so forth. But from everything I've seen and talked to people, people don't actually use them. So anyway, just a couple thoughts on that point. Because I think that if you want to have real currency usage and you're limited or you're adoption group doesn't see any use in the commerce functions and doesn't see any advantage to spending their digital currency because it's going to be worth more in the future, unlike traditional currencies, right, which are inflationary. And so there's somewhat of a baked-in incentive in fiat currencies to spend them now because they're going to be worth less in the future. You're seeing the exact opposite in digital currencies. And so I think that's part of the reason of why you don't see, like I said, commerce and merchant adoption related to digital currencies. Because why would I buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin now when it's going to be worth more tomorrow? I'll just spend fiat because it's going to be worth less tomorrow, right? And so I think those kind of macro forces, like I said, while they're good for adoption through social media, they're not really good drivers of commerce. So I don't even necessarily think of cryptocurrencies as currency. I mean, I think even that name is somewhat of a misnomer. But anyway, those are discussions for a larger, like I said, macro kind of topic. So anyway, I'll leave my comment up there.
Thank you. Mr. Steven. Yes.
Yeah, interesting topic. Very, very broad, as Extra said. I'd like to focus on the AI portion of this, and I want to do something fun real quick. By show of hands, who here has actually used AI or machine learning and built stuff with it? Brian, Eric, David, Lisa. Okay, so this is really interesting to me because there's a notion of what AI is that I think society has, and they're picturing it as, you know, autonomous vehicles, things that are almost having their own mind and eventually going to take over the world. I think what society generally thinks of as AI is general artificial intelligence, which is not something that we're even close to today. Absolutely not. It's way off in the future. We may get there someday. When I hear things like IBM talking about their personal assistant, to me, that sounds more like the general AI, because to be useful in that regard, if it's going to be a clone of myself, it's going to have to know everything that I know and have my experiences to make the decisions that I would make, even though those are mundane tasks. So what AI actually is today are these smaller sets of tasks. So you see AI image generation, artificial intelligence-based trading in cryptocurrency markets, things like that. But the way that those things actually work is you have to feed it tons and tons and tons of data, of real world data, so that it can figure out, oh, wait, I've seen this pattern before. Or when you say, I want a photograph of Elon Musk, it can figure out what Elon Musk looks like and generate a photograph of it. And then you say, oh, I want this in a painting in Mona Lisa style. And it figures out what that means and generates it. But it's only as good as the data that you put into it. And I think that's the real challenge, is that society thinks that AI is going to wake up and take over and have this huge usefulness, but its usefulness is only as good as what we put into it. So if we're feeding it, let's say I'll tie it in with cryptocurrencies. If I want to make a bot that does automatic trading based off of the decisions that I would have made, I'm going to get the data set that I would have looked at, feed it in, and train it to work like I worked. That might not be the best way for it to work, but that's kind of how machine learning and AI works in any particular field. You feed it data based off of what we think, and then we make tweaks and corrections to it based off of what we think, to to come out with a result that we think is appropriate. And I think the best place to look at it, I wish I could show you this, but if you go out on Midjourney or any of the AI image things and you type in a prompt, you think you know what you're going to get. I actually created a one for this show, AI, social media, and digital currency, to see what it would come up with. And one of the things it came up with is just this blank computer screen. Another one was this head that kind of looked like a little creepy. But the things that it's putting into this are based off of concepts that it doesn't understand. It's tags that are associated with images, and it says, oh, this has something to do, like Facebook has something to do with social media. So I'm going to take something that looks like the Facebook icon and stick it into the picture, and let's see if it makes them happy. And then it's up to humans to interpret that. So like one of the images that I got back, it was funny. I thought, well, let's do like more of an Android head that has wires coming out of it and maybe social media feeding into it. So I gave it that description, and the creepiest pictures I've ever seen came out of it. Like these long neck things and the glowing red eyes and these like big teeth. I've never seen a robot why they would need teeth, but it doesn't know that that's creepy to me. It's just using the data that it had, and it's up to the human then to train the AI systems better and say, no, that's creepy as all get out. I don't ever want to see that again, you know? And here's what's more acceptable. So it seems like it's intelligent, and that's why it's artificial intelligence. It seems like it's intelligent. It actually isn't understanding. It doesn't have an intrinsic understanding of the subject matter that it's dealing with in order to draw conclusions. And here's a really simple example. Steve Martin is one of my favorite comics and actors, and he was in a movie called The Jerk. And there's a line from that movie, you'll recognize this probably. It actually came from his comedy routine. And when he was losing his audience, he would throw this line out in the middle of nowhere, and everybody would laugh. Okay? The line is, I was born a poor black child. So we can understand from different perspectives why that would be funny. Even today, it was funny. Like, obviously, he's white, he's not black. How he could be born a black child and then somehow become a white guy, it doesn't make sense, and that's what makes it funny. If you're feeding information like that into an AI and you tell it the joke, it's not going to get it. And if you ask it to make another joke like that, it doesn't know how, because it doesn't know what it's talking about. It's only as good as the information that's fed into it. So, and that's machine learning. There is deep learning systems which go beyond that, and will eventually hopefully get to general artificial intelligence. But I just want to dispel the myth right now that there's not this general artificial intelligence right on the horizon that's going to make decisions about our market trades and things like that. It's only as good as the information we put in and how we tune it to get it to do what we want. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Dr. Talib.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I came a bit late, so I just listened to Brian and Dirk and then the other two that followed him. So I'm going to speak from a perspective of developing countries. I'm speaking to you from Amman, Jordan now. It's way far from the United States. But what you're talking about there is nothing to do here. It doesn't resonate in any mind or any kind of thing. The only thing that resonates is what Brian said, which is not to glorify the people that have money. That's something that we connect to very well. So, having said that, I think that we need to think of the world not just as the United States or states within the United. We have to think of the world in a bigger perspective. And I know artificial intelligence, I agree with Steve, that is not the answer to everything. But social media has made a big impact on us, on everybody. It's brought the world together. So what I want to say here has to do a little bit with how do we bring the world together, not just the United States. Now, that is going to be very difficult, but social media is helping in that. And I do agree with Brian. He says that we shouldn't glorify the rich people of the world, because these millionaires, they have their own interest. They don't see the developing world. They don't see us as people at all. They see us as material to market their products. That's it. No more, no less. I'll stop at this point because I want to hear and listen more, to learn more. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Eric.
The world is just a combination of lots of forces running crazy faster and faster and faster. And, one of the forces we talked about is the kitchen sink model that David Schumacher brought up. And, of course, Rob also mentioned Elon Musk. And that's like his company. We make more money if everybody buys everything from us. We want them to buy the content from us. We want them to use our distribution to get it. We want them to buy things from us. We want them to use our devices to watch it and access it on. Wouldn't that be great if everything everybody did paid us as this group? We start our own company. Wouldn't that be great? On the other hand, there's a lot of people, kind of like Brian was talking about, that are, well, yeah, but I want to do my own thing, and I don't necessarily want to be a multinational corporation. I don't want to glorify that. So we've got this idea of let's all do what we want and put it together versus let's have the kitchen sink model. So those forces that are always going. And meanwhile, technology continues racing ahead at fast speed to actually connect everything up. So here we are. We're on StreamYard, yet you can watch this on Pod TV and YouTube at the same time. And so more and more things want to connect in this. And we're starting to make this two-way. You can go sometimes now and you can have multiple platforms with people chatting on Facebook and coming in there and YouTube at the same time. So there's this idea of how do you connect all these things together? And so we're building this infrastructure layer that is running like crazy. The social layers are all competing. And when you start putting these social layers together, I think there's some really good points. Well, how do you motivate? Do I really want to be connected to this layer that I don't trust? Like TikTok is very well moderated, comparatively speaking. And so, advertisers are running there going, yeah, I'm safe here. Other places, well, it depends. It's the less moderated things, the more risk there is, because you don't know what he's going to say and what you can be tied with. So that's one of the problems when we look at the metaverse is what happens when you're watching to a multiple connected thing, where we're having this discussion over multiple platforms. You just can imagine having the same platform connected to Fox News and MSNBC, diametrically opposed viewpoints in there. So how does AI? Well, AI helps with really two things. It helps do what we know we want to do faster. So it can go ahead and take massive amounts of data. It can do things faster. But the other thing it can do is find us things that we didn't know we wanted in the first place. I mean, Netflix is a great example of that, because they used to have the Nielsen ratings where they would do a sample and say, oh, here's what we think people want. Netflix knows what you click on, what trailers you watched, what you looked at. I mean, there's more data on there like crazy. So they can find out things you want that you didn't know you wanted, shows that you might watch, but it could be anything. And Stephen brought up the point that, a lot of those models are not that complex. Sentiment and natural language processing are big areas to say, yeah, but what does this mean? So part of it is the data, but the other thing is the complexity of the models, because the humans are pretty complex. And so now you have people trying to put those models into quantum computing, which can use quantum stasis to store much more complex models and run them faster. So the potential is that they can actually find out what we want by getting human feeling in there faster. So how does that all connect? Well, we have social media layers connecting people and finding people we want to connect with. So I say, find me some people. I want to have this topic. And it goes out and brings in people in the social network. It can help shape the social networks we're talking on and do it eventually properly. all platforms. The second thing is they can find out what we want and do commerce there. So I think there's kind of this balance between kitchen sink versus distributed. The technology is going fast, failing and succeeding at record paces. There's this economic layer which allows us to find value. I tend to not think of this economic layer as just crypto. It's just ways of finding and exchanging value. So now let's assume AI finds more things to exchange. Like maybe somebody wants, a cool product for their dog and willing to exchange it for, some time on renting somebody's boat. I mean, the value could change crazy with AI, because rather than saying, oh, find out what I really want, where it is, and work out the real deal for me to get what we want much better. So I think the social layers are evolving, the technology infrastructure layer is evolving, and I think the value-based economy layer is evolving, and AI has a chance. To me, it's really that connection between building the social layer and connecting it with the technology layer.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. David Schumacher, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, great conversation from various points of view. I like all the points of view, actually. I feel like I can take something in from each one of them. One of the things that I do when I'm listening to a conversation like this, or reading various news, public sources of information, is trying not to be distracted by my own biases, trying not to filter out things that I don't like to hear, and trying not to jump on the bandwagon of those that I do like to hear. So when you bring up lightning rod names like the billionaires that I talked about earlier, sometimes it's hard for me to look past what I don't like to see what I do like, what's under the hood, what might be coming. So it really comes down to looking past the public comments, all the public chatter, and focusing on, so what are the ideas here and what's actual development and when can it happen? And we've had some very good comments, I think, about feasibility of these, especially by you, Rob. I think you did a great job talking about that. So the idea of credibility is twofold for me, and I think it goes right into what we've been talking about. I have to worry that I take in credible information and don't filter, but I also have to look at the sources that can be tainted as well, because we've touched on that in a little bit of our topics here too. So I want to leave you with another use of blockchain, and that's blockchain social media posts. I see 6 companies out there now. There may be more, but there are 6 that I've stumbled across that would use blockchain to create an immutable record of what I say when I engage in various topics. Would that make me more careful about what I say? Because now I'm on the record forever based on what I've said. So the idea, it's another approach to credibility. If you're going to say something, it's going to be out there and it's going to be easily verifiable. And perhaps with the use of AI on the back end, we can make some very good use of rating systems or whatever that come from that. So these are by companies that I haven't heard of before, don't know what their track records are, but it's an interesting idea. There's going to be a lot more interesting ideas that we're not thinking about right now that can be developed anywhere on the planet. And I think the first one, wherever they come from, that can develop these is going to be the lead in that direction as we move forward. So great topic, pretty broad, pretty hard to, I think, to rein us all into one area on this one, Sharif, but I very much enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Lisa.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about what y'all are talking about, but I think in summary, I'll say this. The reason I think I'm here is because in the past few months, there was talk about the privilege of working in.
Lisa, you need to fix your speaker. It sounds like you're speaking from the bottom of a toilet.
Yeah.
Is that better? Maybe I was holding it wrong.
No, it's still very, very hard to
Echo.
make out the words.
Yes.
Let's try to put it down. Does that help?
That
Is
helps a
that
lot.
better?
Much better. Much better.
Okay, it was my hand in the way, I guess. So, I may have to turn off the coffee pot in a minute. But for those who know me, I love coffee. So I've had the good fortune to watch a lot of people around the world thrive when they were in situations that you might describe as very poor or not enough. And that has been because of blockchain technologies, the hope of decentralization, experiments with tokens, experiments with communities and games, and also because of Telegram and Twitter. So when we have the opportunity to affect the largest marketplace in the world, the largest town hall, where we can potentially share messages about artists like Broken Dolls and Ultra Rare and Humble and, you know, so many others that are creating out there, the thought of their success and that millions of people could watch and be inspired and create other things, it's just irresistible. And in my experience, when you want money, you go to the people who have it and you watch how they got it and you learn from them. And so that's what I've been doing, trying to get messages to Elon Musk every way I can, sharing information. And I think I'm seeing some success. So I'm super optimistic about that and look forward to working with lots of people of all levels of wealth. I don't think we should shame him just because he's rich, but he is a real person that people we know. And I think it's an opportunity to work together. I also wanted to mention we have a lot of ways that we're dealing with AI right now. So some of that was mentioned, the art and the images that people are using for NFTs. There's been a lot of debate about is that art, or there's different collectors that have different opinions about that. That's really been interesting lately. And also,
You froze, Lisa.
And she's
Sorry
gone.
about that. Yes, Professor David is speaking. Yes.
Thank you all the speakers on this. It's been a good topic today. Let me just finish with a couple of points on it. You know, if you look at this technology and elements, you know, we've talked about individuals, we've talked about elements, but when I look at all of them through, we need to remember that there's really no room for bias in the tools you're using here. In the AI, the different elements, even on the cryptocurrency side, there's no room for bias. You've got to have transparency there. You have to keep these transactions well managed because the risk is going to be high on this. We've seen successes and failures in social media. We've seen many more failures than we've seen successes, though. Cryptocurrency, we've seen a roller coaster ride in crypto is probably almost the wrong word. It's been more like vertical takeoff and landings as you get there, and how we can begin to use it. And you put AI on top of that and understand that one of the key things in different types of AI, particularly machine learning and others, is you've got to train it. And so how can I train the AI with all the different social media approaches, all the bias in social media? How can I train it across multiple crypto digital currency platforms? Again, with the different rules, regulations, the different transaction options, and the risk portfolios. And how can I do that on a global basis? Because none of these make sense in just applying it on a regional basis. So how can I do this all globally? And you know, that's one of those grand challenges, I think, as we look at this. And I'm going to go back to something you've heard me say often. We're really talking about how to take these multitude of systems and take these systems of systems and merge them in a way that they are all greater than themselves, but they all have to interact. You have to know those elements of the interactions in order to succeed. So Sharif, thank you for letting me, and I think that's my quick closing remarks.
Thank you. Madam Lisa.
Sorry about that. I was saying the ways we're using AI, some of those, a lot of the games and communities that are created, they're writing lore stories. They'll put in some of the content into the AI story generators and create lore and different experiences for people that maybe they're not thinking of otherwise. People are obviously using chat support that was mentioned before. I mentioned the art and the imagery for the NFTs. And people are beginning to build code for a lot of things, a lot of tools on top of the blockchain, a lot of, automation in various ways, some better preferred by players than others. And so the players who have coding skills are really showing everyone else kind of how it's done and hopefully creating ways that are easier for each of us to communicate. So anyway, it's kind of exciting, and also I think to address earlier it was mentioned something along the lines of scarcity of money in the economy. I think when we're living in token economies and millions of token economies where people can exchange value for things like if you have my NFTs, you can get coffee. I think we're going to see a lot more freedom and flexibility around what people are able to do. So I think the more we can focus on community tokens instead of currencies, the better off we, the people, are going to be. And I would encourage everyone to think at this time about how we can contribute, whether we're talking to Elon or we're talking to the next Elon or we're talking to the poorest person with the most influence. It doesn't really matter. What would we say and what would we do? So some of us are on the alien world's planets going through a real life experiment right now with lots of resources at stake. And we're learning to run for office and govern together and figure out, like, what are we actually going to do? And it's a big experiment and a big effort. But I feel like this is the time to do stuff. And I'm not judging people who want to sit on the sidelines and eat popcorn or in the chair and watch on TV. We need that too. We need all aspects. But for those who do want to affect billions of people and get resources to others, I would say it's time to gather and get to work.
Thank you. Mr. Brian.
Well, Lisa, I do agree with you on the idea of stop talking and start doing. I encourage everybody out there to do so. And if you want to understand, start building projects, contact me. All I do all day long is tokenomics. I read about collapsed economies and economic development. It's been a passion for me since I was probably 18 or 19 years old. So feel free to get in contact with me on all that. I'll share my Telegram and some of my socials. But in terms of conclusions on everything, the reason why Meta has lost so much money is because there's no customer. Zuckerberg, no one asked for it. Zuckerberg shot a shot in the dark and he got hubris. That's it. Let's see. When it comes to currencies, the biggest adopters of currencies traditionally in history have been those looking at the end of a gun. No exceptions. No exceptions. You want a currency, it's either that or death, because every other currency will fail. We do have digital currencies right now. They're just not on the SWIFT system. They're called Starbucks points. They're called American Airlines points. You can trade these for real dollars. You can go out, you can buy cups of coffee. They all exist out there. All that's different is a new, stronger encrypted technology. It's cryptographic technology. Nothing is new about a digital currency. That being said, yeah, the world has to come together. The world has to fight more. Humans aren't going to change. It just is what it is. Khalid, you and I would very much enjoy talking about how some of these economies can start to leapfrog the traditional ways of doing things. I think about that stuff all the time. It's basically my obsession of playing Age of Empires as a kid turned into a global cry for help as an adult. Rob, what I heard you say about Elon Musk was if Elon Musk was protected from Elon Musk would make better decisions. You're right. I don't hate people with money. at all. I like what Bill Gates is doing by fighting malaria and trying to spread information about epidemics. I like Warren Buffett's management style. You guys should really look up Chuck Finney, an Irish-American immigrant who gave away $8 billion and died penniless to help the world. I'm not saying don't glorify with people with money. I'm saying glorify people who are narcissists who hoard money. Kublai Khan got his currency accepted by killing anybody who didn't accept it. The U.S. gets their currency accepted by the end of a gun throwing you in jail if you don't pay your taxes in U.S. dollars. Currencies are won by weapons. So whether your weapon is economic, whether your weapon is physical, whether your weapon is cultural, religion, anything like that, that's how it works. Humans organize in two ways, via tribes or via communities. The only difference is a community has a common goal and a tribe has a common enemy. Religions, cults take advantage of both, and that's why they're the most powerful organizations. You want to coin that work, start a religion around it. Otherwise, start saving people's lives. Piss some people off. That's how you change the economy. Don't go to Elon Musk. He's going to tell you to buy Dogecoin so he can take your money. Let's build it together. I know tokenomics. You want a working system? Come to me. Let's talk to the right people. Let's get it done. I'd love to help. That's all I care about. That being said, cheers. It was lovely to connect with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brian. Professor Rob, what's your concluding remarks?
Yeah, the Brian pointed out the point that I made is for Musk to get better, he needs to be protected from himself, and not an uncommon problem with people in power. Often when people rise up into power, they start thinking that they can do anything and that laws don't apply to them. And that's typically when they get into trouble and they find out that while they are privileged and certain laws do not apply to them, they're not free from governance and oversight, and the end result can be catastrophic. I think this Twitter deal is going to go down in history as one of the biggest mistakes ever made. And if I was just going down the linear process of how we got there, but just at the end of the day, all you can do is say the market on tech is way down. He just paid a massive premium for a company that he pretty much crippled before buying it. So just the difference between what Twitter is worth and what he paid for it, which could people a lot of concern. And the magic really was how the hell to get the banks to go along with this. Because a lot of those banks are probably going to lose their money. I don't know who the hell did due diligence and the banks. I'm an ex-internal auditor. There's no way in hell I would have passed this deal, but somebody did, and clearly for some secondary benefit that we aren't seeing at the moment. But the end result's going to be bad. On artificial intelligence, I cover the area and I've been involved with Watson since its creation. The designation for artificial intelligence has changed over the years. It used to be general artificial intelligence was the top. Now superintelligence is the top. That's the one we're concerned about taking out the human race. And we haven't got the general yet. Superintelligence isn't there, but we should point out that at places like Google, they've got the AIs now programming themselves and evolving. And so the rate of evolution for AIs is now going to accelerate. And with regard to AIs telling jokes, I was present when Watson did the debate challenge in San Francisco, and actually Watson told pertinent jokes throughout the debate that were tied to the debate questions, which Watson had not seen ahead of time. But it does require an awful lot because it's a deep learning system. It does require a substantial amount of data, and that concern with regard to bias, like David Smith pointed out, is to point the biggest problem we've got as we evolve these AIs is the fact that the data is increasingly being corrupted, and that does mean the AIs, if they don't have enough oversight, are going to be corrupted as well, and the decisions they are going to make are going to be less reliable as a result. Oh, by the way, we already have people working on human digital twins. That part of whether we're talking about part of the Earth 2 effort that NVIDIA started, or just companies that have been founded to create digital immortality. We have, in fact, we've got one researcher that at least claims that he's got a human digital twin working right now. I'll believe it when I see it. But the underlying concept of how these things are developed, first recognize the human digital twin as you bring it on board would do the things that were pretty much repetitive, advances on filling out forms, doing stuff that you do day in and day out. They don't change much. That's pretty easy to train a narrow AI to do today. It's just a matter of giving people the resources. Currently, our AI resources are mostly focused on sales. They're not focused on decision support, which is kind of ironic given how when Watson first came up, its primary purpose was to help doctors get to diagnosis more quickly. And the demonstration I saw that was put on by one of the doctors that was creating the system took a rare ailment that it had taken him 3 years to diagnose, and it diagnosed it in 15 minutes without any prompting. So it showcases the promise of medical diagnosis and how Watson could help. And of course, recognized IBM has exited that part of the market largely because the access to data had become so problematic, and the federated data approach had not been able to address it. And so they just said, you know what, the potential for liability here is too high. We can see that the data sources are compromised. And so we're going to move to things that don't have as much potential downside and where we can actually execute. And Watson's doing reasonably well. I actually hoped it would do better. But the funny thing about Watson as an advanced AI is the cost in Watson isn't in the hardware or software. It's in the training, and it is very expensive to fully train a Watson instance. And that probably points to the fact that why it's been so heavily focused on sales. And if you do get a sales call from somebody that sounds like a person you have a conversation with, it chances are that's a Watson backend. We've had test cases where men have asked, surprisingly women haven't done this. That kind of points to perhaps the men's unique capability in the world, but men have actually tried to ask Watson out, thinking it was a real person, showing perhaps how gullible we are as a sex. In the end, though, the thing I want to leave you with is just recognize that we get overexcited about technology at the front end. We go into that valley where it underperforms against our expectations, and then suddenly it works and we are surprised like it happened overnight. Just recognize that the time to get involved in that is about the time you're about to get surprised, because that's when you have upside. You don't get involved with the front end where everybody's overhyped, because that's too much money going into too little benefit, and the market will correct. And so you want to get, unless you're watching close, you can certainly ride up and bail out. A lot of people make a ton of money doing that. But you have to be expert on the technology. You have to spend the time to understand where the inflection point's likely to be, so you're out before it occurs, because you don't want to write it down. It'll go down fast. We saw cryptocurrency collapse fairly quickly. So wait till it hits a more of a steady state when the conditions are better determined, and it's a much better investment, much better implementation. Another thing you can do, though, is just simply anticipate what it is that the AI will eventually help you do, and just do it yourself. Recognize that we're all heavily motivated, and technology works against us to get us to do things we don't want to do before we're ready. Take a breath, stop, and before you go out and click on that expensive item, make that purchase, make that investment, just do your homework. Figure out if you know what it is you need to know, and you know where the bodies are buried, and then make a measured investment going forward. Where people get into trouble is they get excited about something they read, somebody hits them on social media, they figure they're missing out, and they jump in, and generally they jump in late and they lose their shirts. So just do your due diligence, be measured when you're looking at technology, and you'll generally do a lot better than if you try to rush in uninformed, whether you're investing in technology or you're buying technology. Just remember the explorers get the arrows, the prospectors get the arrows, the settlers get the land. You want to be a settler. There are a lot of us that live on that prospector vector. I'm one of them, but it is not at all for the faint of heart, and there's some real downside to being the first in. So just remember that the prospectors get the arrows, the settlers get the land. With technology, be a settler. Take care, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Then Mr. Extra, are you with us? No. Mr. Steven, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad I'm going next, because I want to hear Mr. Talib. Is that right, Talib?
Yes.
I want to hear your reaction to this and input on this. I think one of the dangers in this country, we look at billionaires and we look at all the rich and all the technology and all the advancement, and we forget all the other places in the world that this isn't happening. the U.S. is a powerhouse for this kind of advancement, and technology is great. But at the end of the day, they're tools, and I don't want to get caught in vying for trying to be the next billionaire or millionaire. If I make $1 million, great, that would be super. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Brian had said about Meta was a failure because they were betting on assuming they knew what people wanted, and it was wrong. And I think people don't really want technology as an end game. I think technology and all these things are tools to get to what's really important. And when I consider other countries that aren't powerhouses of technology, I think they're actually closer to what the true end game is. And that's connecting with people, building relationships, whether it's in person or online like this, building communities that thrive and relationships that thrive, because ultimately at the end of the day we want to be happy, right? I don't want to be ultimately at the end of the day just plugged into some metaverse that is simulating things. I actually want to experience things in real life. And so all of these different things, cryptocurrency, social media, and artificial intelligence, I look at as tools to get me to that end game, right? I'm not going to spend all my time in AI. I'm not going to spend all my time in social media. I'm going to use it to achieve my life goals of connecting with people, having a great family, doing all these other things. So I just wanted to throw that out there, food for thought of the focus of that. And I'd love to hear your perspective. You're not in the United States. I actually loved your comment when you said right after me, like, I can't relate. that helps me understand that not everybody is on this page, and there's a much bigger world out there. So I'll just leave it at that, and looking forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks?
Okay. I want to second what Stephen said, because what we do here in this part of the world is we receive everything from you, and we don't know how to classify that, but we use it. We're using social media now as we speak. We're using Zoom and other means to do that, but we're only users of your technologies. So what I wanted to say is that you should consider us when you do things like that, when you speak about things like that. That's all that I wanted to say. Thank you so much, Stephen. With regard to cryptocurrency, I was in Dubai a while ago. We did a little workshop on crypto technology, cryptocurrency, and tourism. I work in tourism for a long time. And it was clear that cryptocurrency is not very much fitted for future, but it's the governments that have put us into that. They don't acknowledge this cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency will eventually end up dollar domination. And that's not going to fall well on the American leaders. But I thought, what I said at that time is, I think that we are going to have to live with what we have, and that the cryptocurrency is the time for the future. But I asked to use this cryptocurrency logic to provide visas for people to travel from one place to another, because that's what tourism is all about. So we could use the technology. I agree. Technology is not an end game by itself. It's a tool. We have had that as human beings for a long period of time. We were always technologically behind, and then we caught up with everything. But we were not slaves of this technology. We only used it to achieve our purposes and our goals. So that's all what I wanted to say. Thank you so much, Sharif, for this very interesting discussion. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Eric.
We can't hear you.
Mr. Eric.
Can't hear you. You're on mute, Eric. Can't hear you.
You're off mute, but you're still silenced. We can't hear you at all. And he's gone.
Okay.
I think he can join again.
He will reconnect soon.
Yes. So Eric will join. So, Mr. Extra, he is with us, or
No, I don't see him.
I think he stepped away.
Yeah.
There he is. Nope, still no sound.
No sound.
Sounds like you lost your speaker entirely.
Yeah. It's a matter of technology.
Just when we think we've got technology figured out, right?
Yes, I agree completely.
We only call it technology until it works.
I don't think we ought to be comparing this to a seance. Can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Do you
Okay.
understand my message?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Spirits from beyond.
You're put on mute.
We probably need to wrap here pretty soon anyway.
Yeah. Can go to somebody else and then come back to him.
I'm sorry. I think he has. Yes, I think he has internet issues. So last time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
There he
can.
is.
Talking. So
Okay.
we as humans, we have this constant battle between the familiar and better. We like better, but not too better. It scares us. And we like familiar, but we get bored with it. So everything always has to be new, improved now with whatever. And it has to be new, but not so new that it scares us. It's just like we already know. And so we're busy trying to take all these individual pieces and pretend that it's just like we always know, because that makes us feel smart and comfortable. Now we've got all these individual pieces going crazy. And now we put those together in those systems that David Smith talked about. Now it's even more scary because we don't even know how those pieces are fitting together. So that's something is, as we look at this stuff, our tendency is to say, let's pretend that AI and digital currency and the metaverse and all that are just like what we've already known. We know what it's going to do, and we know. The key is, when we got a car, we thought it can do what a horse does, it better. And we do all kinds of things in the car that we would never dream of doing with a horse. And I think that's going to be true out of this whole combination of AI, social media, and tokenomics and digital currency. But one thing that's interesting is that we could build a very biased AI. We can go ahead and build things which are very not what we want. I just remember watching a political debate and watching it fact-checked in real time. I think that would be great if AIs could fact-check all these, especially politicians and news sources coming up, because that took a lot of people in that debate to go do that in real time. AIs could actually do that pretty well. So overall, I'm optimistic, but we have to realize what we're dealing with.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. This is very important because yes, today's topic is very broad. We are discussing on AI, social media, and digital currency. Why I choose this topic? Because in developing world, country like India, Bangladesh, many social entrepreneurs, they're utilizing social media in our business incubators with the help of Central Bank of Bangladesh, and they're making very good business. And we are also creating awareness for artificial intelligence, for digital currency. Digital currency, I can say that it's quite difficult to get approval from Central Bank of Bangladesh, because still they are observing, as World Talent Economy Forum helping them to developing policy, and we are organizing policy dialogue. So it's quite difficult to implement the developing world. That's for I'm sure. So maybe we can do different type of advocacy with more accurate currency, which is important for developing nations. And beside that, that World Talent Economy Forums, we are working as a academy we are organizing a lot of offline seminar activities. So next Friday, we have very special episode with the youth of South Asia. It's in offline. Our session based on fourth generation technology and research paper publication. You know that World Talent Economy Forum, we published a lot of papers and many researchers from developing world. They are doing research and we are uplifting the community. And this is the way actually we are growing from our speaker. Those who want to support our projects, you can join as a member of World Talent Economy Forum in our Talent Economy Lab, and you can get involved with the developing nations, real people, real problems, and which is important. That is the issues that World Talent Economy Forum developing, and I want to give European Innovation Alliance because they are supporting our projects for running this Nikola Tesla Technology Conference. And from our speakers, those who want to publish papers, it will be published in iOS Press, definitely based on Tesla issue, based on Tesla innovations. You can publish with us. Our conference next year, April 5 to 7. Already 25,000 scientists from around the world, they are supporting World Talent Economy Forum projects. So hopefully it will be very interesting. Beside that, different developing world, Prime Minister Office, Energy Ministry, Central Bank, largest corporation, they are joining. So it will be very effective. And I request the people from developed world, like country like North America, country, European unions, and those who want to help, those who want to support our youth community, you can. Thank you, Mr. David Schumacher, Mr. David Smith, Mr. Brian, Mr. Rob, Mr. Steven, Professor Dr. Talib Raphael, Madam Lisa, and Mr. Eric for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. And we are developing a real world, we are developing knowledge-oriented society, and we are taking a lot of action in real world. So your support always helpful for us. And if you have more innovations, you can join in our business incubators. We have 3 campuses in Dhaka. So any of the campus you can join. And by the way, I'm sure you can engage with thousands of people. Already we are collaborating with 22,000 institutions in South Asia. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your continuous support. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Sharif. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.